Hey everybody, it's Curtis, the Wordy Nerd. I'm back again. We're doing another painting tutorial for you today. Just like before, we're painting outside, so there is going to be some noise out there. What we're working on today is a custom Marvel Legends Swordsman. Alright? Now, Swordsman is one of those characters we're probably not going to see Hasbro produce anytime soon. He's just simply too obscure, which makes him a great candidate for customizing. To create this swordsman, what I did was I took a Marvel Legends Bucky Captain America from the new Hasbro line. Well, I guess it's Wave 2 of the Return of Marvel Legends. So, we use that body because it's already got a pretty good build, right? It's got the masked head that really just needed the fin added to the top, the ear wings removed, and then a little bit of his tunic added on. So I sculpted on additional shoulders to make the flared shoulder look on his shirt, and then I took a Bronze Tiger from DC Universe Classics, removed his lower gi piece, and added that to this figure after removing his little utility belt. The boots are already ideal, so what we're going to do today is we're going to apply his 3 layers of basic paint coats. Alright, we're going to work on some color theory today, and basically what we're going to go over is what, why, and how. Alright, so I'm using Vallejo paints again today. That's my primary go-to paint. We're going to use the Ultramarine Blue, we're going to use Magic Blue, and we're going to use Electric Blue. Alright, now the 3 of these colors together, layered correctly, are going to create the illusion of light and shadow on this figure. Okay, and that's, as we've discussed before, that's the ultimate goal when you're working on painting, is you need that 3 layers of color to give it a really strong appearance, to make your image really pop. So I'm going to start with my Ultramarine Blue, and this is going to be our base coat. Alright, now that is not the same as primer, though some people do use a primer as a base coat. That is acceptable in some situations, but that's not what we're doing right here, right now. So, Swordsman has bare arms. So when I go back to do the arms, as you can see, I didn't even prime all the way under there. But because of the way his shoulders are designed, we're not going to see the underside so much. So when we put the paint on for the underarms, it's actually going to serve our purpose perfectly without the primer on here. Now he has been primed black already to give the paint something to stick to, which helps. Okay, I apologize for the tractor trailers and stuff. There's just nothing I can do about that for right now. Alright, so working from the top of the figure downward, because light hits the top first, we assume the light source is overhead at all times. So we work from the top down toward the bottom of the figure. We're going to get just a little bit on our large, wide, flat dry brush, and in just simple strokes, we're just going to brush down the figure. Now he has detailing in his build that we're going to try to leave some of the black showing in, so that there's going to be a little bit more visible detailing for the later steps in painting him. Alright, I don't know a ton about the character of Swordsman. I know a little bit about him, but he is definitely one of those characters. I get asked about making Swordsman customs probably 3 or 4 times a year, which, I mean, compared to the numbers on some of the other characters I get asked to make, that's pretty high. I mean, most popular thing that I get asked to make a lot is Snake Eyes. I've probably done more Snake Eyes customs than I can legitimately count. Behind that is probably Gladiator. I've done a lot of Gladiator customs, which is kind of funny to me because for all the Gladiator customs that I've made, I can go to my local Walmart and Targets and find Gladiator's peg warming for the Marvel Universe line from months and months back. So I'm not sure what makes him popular with folks and when or why, but so be it. Now, as I get down here to the legs in a moment, we're going to see that because of the design, just like on the back muscles, we want to move side to side just a little bit, because we have to create that illusion that the light is still moving down. So we want those shadows and the crevices. All right. And what this base coat is going to do for me is it's going to create another layer for the color. The way the human eye sees light and sees color is that an object is reflecting the light away. So it's absorbing everything except for everything out of the light energy wavelength except for the color that we see. So when we change what our base color is, we change the way the light moves through the color and bounces back out for our eyes. The way that all works together is probably a lot more complicated than that, and honestly I don't know if I'm qualified to discuss it, but I think the way I explained it there should be good enough for our purposes for for painting toys. So when we alter the base color, what we end up with is a light refraction that's going to make it, instead of the light moving through the brighter blue and hitting the dark black primer underneath, it's actually going to refract back a different wavelength of the blue for us. And as we build from our dark blue first up to our brighter blue, it's going to create more of that illusion I was referring to a little while ago in one of my previous videos. That extra amount of shading of realism in the figure. Now, as you can see, I'm moving slightly diagonal, side to side, instead of just up and down, moving around the leg muscles. And that's because the leg muscle sculpting is a side to side. The lines are vertical, right? So because they're vertical, if we paint down, we're just going to get in all the details. We're going to put paint too far into the crevices, and we don't want that. We want to keep some of that shadow, those shadow lines for details while we're doing this. Not everybody likes their figures with that kind of detail. Some people want a very candy colored figure, something with no realism whatsoever, as long as it's more authentic. But what I have found personally is I like the way a figure looks much better when the figure has those details, like a really well drawn comic book character, comic book cover, for instance, a splash page. Alright, so what I'm doing right now is I'm rinsing out that dark blue so that I can prep the next blue, that magic blue. And that magic blue is this beautiful bright blue color that when dry brushed over top of the ultramarine blue is probably going to do most of the work for me. It's going to come away looking like this amazing color shade that you just can't pop out of a bottle, which is great because, you know, anything that adds a little bit extra value to the finished product is okay with me. Alright, so again, we're just going to go right down the body, right over that base coat. And what this is doing, and it's probably a tiny bit difficult to see on the camera, but when I get around to the picture stage later on for everybody, it'll be a lot more obvious, because the camera will have a better light source when I do the photographs. But you'll be better able to see all of that color and what it's doing. Now, because I'm actually dry brushing this on, I'm doing the trick where I use the cardboard box down here, and instead of my palm, because I'm holding the figure with that hand and trying to keep him so that you can see it, I'm brushing out some of my paint onto the box till I get that thinned out paint look that lets me just hit the highlights as I move around the surface. Once again, once we're on the legs, we're going side to side because of the vertical lines of the leg muscles. Alright, now what you're seeing me do there is I'm going in a kind of a back and forth, one direction at a time, but I'm going from the right and then I go from the left to get that coverage, because I'm brushing out my brush lines so that once you see the finished product, my paintbrush lines are going to become invisible. And that's what you ultimately want when you're doing this, is you don't want to look at a custom and see all these brush strokes everywhere you look. It's very distracting from the final product, and it just takes away from that beauty and that illusion of holding a comic book panel in your hands. And yes, I am a little bit stuffed up today. I've been dealing with some cold symptoms still, so I apologize for the slightly stuffy sounding voice. Now, the good thing with Vallejo paints, one of the things that I love most about them is my paints are drying as I'm doing this. So I've got a couple of spots up here where it went on kind of thick, so that's taking a little longer than I prefer it to dry. But for the most part, down here around the legs, around the tunic and stuff, I mean, like, I can touch that. It looks like it came off on my finger, but it actually didn't. Not too much anyway. But alright. So now I'm going to let that dry for just a couple of moments. I'm going to try and stand him up here for a second. Hopefully there's enough of him in the frame so I can rinse out my brush again. And now when I go back over him for this last application, it's going to be the electric blue. And the electric blue I'm going to use very sparingly and very specifically only for the highlights. Alright? Light is assumed to hit the highest point and create shadow in the deepest recesses, in the crevices. So when you hear highlighting, that's what you're being referred to. That's what you're being driven to look for, is that elevated brightness, that final layer of light. So here's our electric blue. We're going to put a few drops on the palette because I won't use nearly as much of the electric blue as I used of the magic blue, and I didn't use as much of the magic blue as I used of the ultramarine blue. Alright, so here we go. The top of the head should have light playing off of it. So really gently, we're just going to move around the face. We're going to hit the tops of the cheekbones very lightly and keep moving in a downward motion. Tops of the shoulders. Around to the top of the chest. Both sides. Gonna go over the tops of the stomach muscles. We're gonna go over the edges on the tunic. Excuse the cough, please. We're gonna come down here and we're gonna do that highlight thing across the legs. Just real simple, flicking the brush. Just enough to get just a little bit of paint on the figure. Now, overall, when viewed, the goal is to make it so that you just can't even see how much of that was actually done. A finished figure should be painted to the point where the brush strokes are invisible. The method and the technique used should be leaving the viewer completely baffled as to try to figure out exactly what was done to create that illusion. And these tutorial videos are designed to help other folks learn some of the tricks that I've learned over the last 15 years of painting, because it's a process, you know. The more practice you get in, the better you become. The more tricks of the trade you learn, you know, there are things, methods, techniques that I know now that the people that helped me learn never dreamt of. And watching this, you guys will do the same thing to me. You'll realize that there are things you can do that I've never even dreamt of being able to do before. So there we go. There's Swordsman's Blue all applied. I'm going to bend his knees a little bit because, see, we've got some of the black spots in the knee joint still. But because of that highlight color, we're going to put that in there. The reason for that is because with that showing in the knee joints, with the knee bent, that should be creating the highlights for us. You know, it's now a raised point on the figure. I'm going to get in there a little bit, and I am now satisfied with that blue application on the Swordsman custom. Now, Swordsman is in a weird spot at the moment. I've had 2 different people ask me about making a Swordsman, so I went ahead and started on him because one of the 2 is assumed to go ahead and actually follow through with the order for him. If not, he'll go to eBay where anybody can bid on him. So I'm waiting to hear back from those guys and see what's gonna happen there. When I come back for my next video, I'm gonna work on some of the flesh tones and how to get at least semi-realistic skin tones on a figure. Alright everybody, that's it for this one. Curtis the Wordy Nerd, remember to like the videos, share the videos, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. You can post comments. I answer everybody's responses. Just let me know what kind of stuff you guys want to see next. I'm out.